Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. Goodman and Haertl. Hot takes with Goodman and Haertl. How are you, my friend?
I'm good, bud. How'd you guys' night go last night?
Well, I'll tell you this. Alex worked with me for the first time, and he did a fantastic job. It's hard, and he knows what I'm talking about. Sometimes it's hard to keep up with the numbers when we're doing the paddle raise, or as some people like to call it, fund to need. And every time I looked over, he was spot on every time. You got free drinks, Alex. You got some great food. Learned about a great organization, Project Self-Sufficiency. I hope you had a good time.
I had a great time. Yeah, thanks for having me out. It was fun to be part of that community, and yeah, I'm glad I didn't mess it all up. So,
and he's still here.
Anything. You were spot on.
And he's still here. He showed up this morning, so it must have gone okay. That's pretty good.
I was a little concerned that he might not be here this morning, but here you are. So thank you, Alex, for doing that. With that, I want to tell you about Sasquatch and Wildcard Casinos in Blackhawk. They have another great promotion. They'll be giving away a Ford Bronco Raptor or nearly $30,000 in cash the weekend of May 23rd. Yes, finalist entries every 10 a.m. until midnight during their daily cash drawings every 45 minutes or by redeeming players' points. And all daily cash drawings that don't get picked are eligible for a second chance drawing on Wednesdays. That can turn into some extra cash. Sasquatch and Wildcard Casinos, a family-owned casino that treats you like family. Time now for the lead.
The lead is presented by Sasquatch Casino, a family-owned casino that treats you like family.
Hit this morning. It's not going to be one topic per segment. I want to start off with the Avalanche. Jared Bednar, after last night's impressive 4-0 win over the Kings, said, quote, one of the best wins in a while. Cale Makar felt the same way. Both teams went into the game, two of the hottest teams in the league. Was this really just, again, considering how well the Kings had been playing?
You know, Eric, when we yesterday talked about the Bucks showing up to Ball Arena to take on the Nuggets without Giannis, without Dame, and then we juxtapose it to last night, LA coming in with their tails on fire, a team that had gone 9-1 in their last 10 games, still playing for home ice advantage in the playoffs, into the season's stretch. There was just a totally different feel with the Avs game against the Kings. I mean, those two teams between them last night were 17-2-1 in their last 20 games collectively. It felt like a playoff matchup. It felt like there was something at stake. It came through on the tube, and I was really mesmerized by the whole thing. And to Jared Bednar's very understated reaction of, you know, the best game that maybe we played in a while, I'm like, wow. I mean, I'm not sure how much better you can play against a team like that. And Darcy Kemper had been incredibly hot. He'd been standing on his head coming in, and they touched him up 4 times. So I thought it was a really great effort defensively, offensively. Everything was clicking last night. You could get a real sense for what this team could look like in the postseason.
I want to go back to the Rantanen trade.
Yeah.
And when he was traded, I think it surprised a lot of people around the NHL. Remember the guys who the Avalanche got back in that Rantanen trade? Who were they again? Will you remind me?
Well, Martin Necas was the key guy. That was basically the one-on-one trade, and Necas was huge last night, had 4 points in the game. He has been great from the time that he has stepped on the ice in Colorado. And I think to the point that we'll get to here, and it's a good one for you to bring up early, when a guy like Chris McFarland can ascertain chemistry, and he can look at a player and see the fit before he even makes a deal. Look, you're tearing down the core when you're trading someone like Mikko Rantanen. And I understand contract year, all of those things. There were distractions there, no question about it. But to the point of Chris McFarland, Joe Sakic they recognized this. They understood it. They were willing to take a chance for any kind of upheaval or pushback in the locker room for the betterment of the team. And I don't even know if it was a roll of the dice, Eric. It was more of an understanding of what they needed to have and the type of player and the type of teammate that he was going to be, because this guy has been great from jump, just like the two goalkeepers have been great from jump, just like Coyle has been great since he came in here from Boston. They have hit the jackpot on so many of their acquisitions throughout this season. It's remarkable.
You know, it's funny. When we did radio together, you said to me, Eric, I'm not a big hockey guy. I really don't know a lot about hockey. And then you were very kind in saying you've learned a lot about hockey from me.
True.
I got news for you. After that little soliloquy, you are now Mr. Hockey.
I love the game.
Okay, good. Now with that,
I love the game. It's great.
I want to talk about Necas and I want to talk about Rantanen. Necas is a good player. Rantanen was considered probably a top 10 player in the league. But what has Rantanen done since he's been traded twice? And what has Necas done since he has been here? As you mentioned, a couple of goals last night. He has 8 goals and 14 assists in 24 games. Rantanen has struggled. He has played for the Hurricanes, now the Stars, 5 goals, 8 assists combined for both teams, 14 points in 21 games. We probably knew this already, but I think now we have our empirical proof, which is the greatness of Nathan MacKinnon and Cale Makar. We talk a lot about how Nikola Jokic makes his teammates better. When you're a line mate of Nathan MacKinnon, you're going to get your opportunities. Yeah. What he's got, and has what, about 80 plus assists already this year?
Right.
The season's not even over. And then you get to play with Cale Makar quite a bit, not only on the power play, but because they only have 3 defensive pairings and 4 lines, everyone pretty much is going to get a chance to play with Makar. Necas is a really good player. Like Nazem Kadri, and I'm not saying to the same level for Mikko Rantanen. Mikko Rantanen feasted on playing with 2 of the top maybe 4 players in the league. I'm not saying Rantanen is not a great player, but maybe he's not as great as we thought he was, because Necas is not putting up similar numbers to Rantanen, but he's not that far behind.
The only concern you have is the inevitability of the 2 teams. I'm talking about Dallas and the Avs now facing each other in the first round. I was sitting there watching this game last night thinking, a couple of weeks in advance, thinking, oh my God, what if this guy gets hot? Because we've seen Rantanen get on burners. We've seen him do it. Now, we haven't seen him do it in Carolina, and we haven't seen him do it in Dallas. But is he capable in a playoff situation? Sure he is. We've seen it. So that concern, there's a part of me that is a little concerned by that. But no, I'm with you. To your point, anytime that you're talking about 2 of the arguably, or maybe inarguably, best players in the world, let alone the league, then you are talking about, of course, it should help any player with good skills coming in. But we've seen it down the line. We've seen it for Necas. We've seen it for guys down the line. How good, and you taught me this, you play like your first 2 lines in the regular season. You count on your last 2 lines, your 3rd and 4th in the postseason. How good are their 3rd and 4th lines right now? They are active.
Logan O'Connor, for him, is on a burner.
Absolute burner.
He is on a burner.
They forecheck. They're doing all of the things all of the dirty work that you want from a 3rd and particularly a 4th line. There's really not. There's a drop off. Don't get me wrong. Of course, there's a drop off, but in a relative sense, they take care of their business, and it makes them a much better and deeper team, I think.
Okay, let's make a hard right turn. Okay. The name of this show is Hot Takes with Goodman and Haertl. If anybody thinks that we're going to be throwing out hot takes every day just to be clickbait, that's not the type of guys that we are. And to double down on the fact that we are not clickbait guys at all, we're going to talk about the Rockies next, because no one's clicking on to listen to anything anybody has to say about the Rockies.
What?
Nobody is. As a matter of fact, I have more interest in the NIT tournament than I do the start of the Rocky season, which starts today against the Tampa Bay Rays. And you pointed it out to me last night, and I find it ironic as well that the Rays are not going to be playing in Tropicana Field because of the hurricane. They're going to be playing in the Yankees Stadium, which is a AAA park, which I think is kind of ironic and I think is kind of fitting for this baseball team that is still going through, what is it, a rebuild that has now lasted 2, 3, or 4 years?
Eric, answer me this question. If you're going to start... Yeah.
I want to say something really quickly. You know what the Rockies are? The Rockies are, you're driving downtown and you see scaffolding around a building. And usually that scaffolding is around that building for X number of months because the building keeps getting built. That scaffolding has been sitting around the Rockies building for years. Finish the damn building already. And what are the Rockies doing today? Who's starting at second base?
Kyle Farmer, 34-year-old journeyman picked up from the Reds or somebody like that.
Is that rebuilding?
No. And then Nick Martini, more than likely in left field, another 34-year-old journeyman. So 2 34-year-old journeymen potentially starting today for a franchise that is in a youth movement.
Well, here's something else, Bruce. Here's another piece of irony. For those, I don't want to get too inside baseball here. When it comes to the minor leagues, your AA team has more talent than your AAA team.
Correct. That's your prospect team.
Your AAA team, your AA team has a bunch of young prospects that are 18, well, maybe 20, 21, 22. Mm-hmm. Your AAA team has a bunch of 34-year-old guys who can't make the major league roster. And if they can, they're on the bench and they're up and down between taking a bus to a game in AAA and maybe being on an airplane to go from big city to big city. Again, it is only fitting that 2 of the starters in today's game are playing in a AAA park because that's where they should be.
Well, you've got 2 guys that I think at some point we think will be instrumental for the Rockies. Chase Dollander, 23-year-old right-hand pitcher, deemed to be the top pitching prospect in the organization. And in fact, in Major League Baseball, he's a very highly regarded arm. Got knocked around a little bit in the spring. I think he finished with a 7.38 ERA. He was, I think, 2-3 in his, I think, 6 starts. Did strike out 16 over his last 11 innings, so he finished with a little bit of a flourish, but gave up runs. I get him for the seasoning part of the aspect, although when you compare him to the 5 guys they're likely to roll out in their starting rotation, I think you could make a fairly good argument of why the hell isn't Chase Dollander here? Let's get him going. The other guy, and you and I were chatting before the show started, the other guy is Zach Veen, who at 23 years of age was the team's MVP in the Cactus League. Hit .298, slashed very impressively, was on base a lot. There are holes in his swing. He has seen very little high-level pitching in the minor leagues. I will listen to that from Buddy Black. I will listen to it. But I don't get it. Because at some point, and you're right, it's a starting the clock on Major League service. That has a lot to do with when a player becomes eligible for arbitration, which means a player comes eligible for huge paydays. But this guy's got to be there pretty quickly, doesn't he? This guy is a cornerstone outfielder, guy of your future, a guy that can hit for power, that's got some speed, can hit for average, has power to the gaps, and is a pretty good defensive player as well. So these are two things that could be a little confounding for a team that is in a youth movement mode. But then again, at the end of the day, I throw my hands up and say, it's the Rockies.
Well, I want to bring up the Cactus League MVP.
Right. I got you. Go.
Okay. Let's talk about what a Cactus League MVP is really winning here. Okay. Certainly it's not a trophy, but I understand maybe you had the best preseason, you had the best spring training. Okay. Just because you put up big numbers in the Cactus League, it means really nothing. And here's the reason why. For those that don't know this, let's go inside baseball once again. Your starters in Cactus League don't go more than 2-3 innings. So if you're facing a stud pitcher, it's for maybe 2-3 innings. When you are at home, usually Major League Baseball teams split their squad. Your veterans play at home. Your younger players travel on the road. I mean, what kind of pitching are you really facing at home? Zach Veen probably faced a lot of guys at home, right? And you're facing another team's guys who are not going to make the team. You're not facing the same quality. But to your point about starting the clock, that's what the Cubs did with Chris Bryant.
Yeah.
You don't want to start the clock too early. And at this point, what the hell difference does it make if Zach Veen is up here in a month and a half? It means really nothing. I understand the outrage. I get it. But really the truth is, I don't want to start his clock any earlier than they need to. I can wait a month and a half to keep him here for an extra year, potentially, before they eventually wind up trading him for a guy like Austin Gomber and then paying the other team to take him.
Yeah.
About 7-8 years down the road. With that, let's look at the starting rotation, which honestly is like the movie Groundhog's Day. How many times have you seen Senzatella, Marquez, Freeland in the starting rotation? They did nothing to upgrade that starting rotation, and Dollendura will eventually be up here. But where is all the young pitching that we are expecting because of this rebuild where the scaffolding is still sitting there? It's one guy you got. That's it. And I understand he was a first-round pick. We're hanging our hat on one guy. One guy's not going to make a rotation. What about the other guys who are always injured? I hope Kyle Freeland has a great day today. It's hard to believe the guy is 31 years old.
Yeah.
He's wasted his entire career in Colorado. It's unfortunate. I wish somehow, some way, he'd find a way to leave because he's a Colorado kid and find success elsewhere.
Yeah. When you stop to think about pitching in the system, Dolander's really the only one that is quote unquote major league ready. And I don't think he's quite ready yet, but he's the closest one. Anyone else is probably maybe a September call up away from being in the big leagues. So there is no cavalry coming in over the hill. No. You're going to roll basically with these 5 or 6 guys, depending on what they do with Dolander, pretty much all season long, health, if health permits. I mean, remember, we're getting Marquez and Senzatella back from missing basically an entire season. They're the same names that we keep hearing, but even they weren't available to us last year in large part. So it's going to be really very interesting. Eric, when we think of the 5 guys that you're rolling out, give me a guy that's better than a 3 starter anywhere else in the top, 20 staffs in the major leagues.
When Marquez is on.
When he is on. Exactly. Marquez
but you're right. But he is actually he's on all the time. I take that back. He's on the disabled list. That's when he's on.
Oh,
you know what the Rockies are? I brought up the scaffolding thing. I'll bring up another thing. Okay. Because everybody knows somebody, not everybody, but most people know somebody like what I'm about to say. You decided to buy a piece of real estate and you're living there. And you walk into their house after they bought it like 3 months ago. And you look at the house and you're like, ooh, why did you buy this place? And they're like, I wanted a fixer-upper. That's what I wanted. I'm a handy guy. I want to redo the bathrooms. I want to redo the basement. I want to redo the living room, yada, yada, yada. And you decide to move away. And 15 years later, you move back and you go to see your friend who bought the fixer-upper, and half the house still isn't done. That's the Rockies roster.
Yeah, that's actually, you're like 2 for 2 today. That's where we're living in your wheelhouse right now. But no, really, I mean, Austin Gomber, Ryan Feltner, Kyle Freeland, and then Marquez and Sensatella. That's essentially what you're rolling into with this season for the Rockies. And look, I'm with you. Well, we both really like Kyle Freeland. What is there not to like? A kid from Thomas Jefferson High School, the pride of Denver, had such a great rookie season, has never really been able to replicate that. But he's had his moments here and there. It's hard to believe now that he's a 31-year-old starter in the big leagues. And you wish the best for him. But, Eric, this is a team that still, the over-under on this team is 59.5 wins. Only the Chicago White Sox are expected to have less success than the Colorado Rockies, who, remember, have lost better than 100 games, 103 and 101 over the last 2 years. So this could be their 3rd year in a row on a youth movement with 100 or better losses. And I don't think, by the way, that this is going to be like the Houston Astros when they did the same thing about, 10, 12 years ago? They came back and are still man-eaters. But the Rockies, I just don't know. Just don't know.
Listen, the Houston Astros drafted well.
Yes.
And developed well.
Yes, they did.
They did do well.
Yes, they did.
So with that, I'll segue into this. I used to be a big baseball fan. I still like baseball, but you are a diehard baseball fan.
Yes.
There's a great saying, and it usually, I don't know if it usually is more about baseball. You could say the same thing about hockey. You could say the same thing about, basketball or football. I'd pay to go see this guy. Yeah. Ezekiel Tovar and Doyle.
Yeah.
Are you spending now? I don't say that you make big bucks. Your wife does. So you use her money. Right.
Which is a good arrangement, by the way.
Why, yes. Would you spend $50 for a ticket? Would you spend $25 for parking? And then you get, beer and peanuts. I know that you're a media guy. I know you can get in for free. Take off your media hat. Let's say, for the sake of argument, I don't know. You decide not to go back to Fox 31 in a year. And suddenly you're retired. So you don't get that free credential anymore. Are you willing to spend $50 for the ticket, $25 for the parking, and then you want to grab a bite to eat? It's going to cost you $25. Are you willing to spend $100 to go sit in a decent seat to watch Ezekiel Tovar or Doyle?
The answer is, and it's hard for me to admit this, no, I wouldn't. Now, what would press me would be who they're playing and
I almost
thank you
on my coffee.
Now,
you said it perfectly. I literally, if you're not watching and you're just listening to us, I had some coffee in my mouth, and you said depends on who they're playing, and I nearly spit my coffee all over the screen because
sorry about that.
That's what the Rockies are. The
Yeah.
Red Sox are in town, the Cubs are in town, the Dodgers are in town, right?
Right. The Yankees are there. I even go to hate them, but no, Look, those two that you mentioned, Brenton Doyle and Ezekiel Tovar, are worth the price of admission if you've got a lot of money to spare. Because emotionally, just watching two players play for a team that really doesn't give you a chance to win is that's empty calories for me. It really is.
Yes,
I mean, if those two guys are helping a team be a quasi wild card team, then yeah, I'm probably going, but that's not the reality for the Rockies at this point.
All right, coming up after the break, Bo Nix, terrific rookie season. CJ Stroud, terrific rookie season. What happened to CJ in his second season, and will that happen to Bo in his second season? That's next.
Ever wondered where city and county fleet vehicles go when they retire? Now's your chance to find out and score big. Imagine driving away with a great deal on a reliable vehicle. For over 45 years, Roller Auction has been the trusted source for government fleet vehicles and equipment. Trucks, SUVs, sedans, and more, all selling to the highest bidder. Don't miss out. Visit roller.bid/hot takes to get auction updates today. Your next vehicle could be just a click away.
Everyone has their favorite barbecue spot. Mine, Smokin' Dave's Barbecue and Brew. My favorites, slowly smoked ribs, smoked corned beef Reuben, smoked meatloaf with a portobello balsamic cream sauce. Don't forget about Smokin' Dave's 16-hour smoked brisket and pork with one of their 4 homemade barbecue sauces. Great sides, you bet. Barbecue beans made with pork and brisket and their southern corn bake. Man, you got to try it. Plus, they have amazing non-barbecue entrees on the menu. Go where I go, Smokin' Dave's Barbecue and Brew in North Denver. Everyone has their favorite sports bar. Mine, the Sportsbook Bar and Grill in Highlands Ranch in the DTC. Both locations are everything a sports bar should be. An upscale menu with 12 different burgers, outstanding wings, and my favorite, the Philly cheesesteak egg rolls. They've got every game on the NFL Sunday Ticket, MLB Extra Innings, NHL Center Ice, NBA League Pass, plus soccer, rugby, and UFC. Sportsbook is a hangout bar or great for private parties. The Sportsbook Bar and Grill in Highlands Ranch, the DTC, and coming soon to Parker. They are the sports bar.
Sasquatch and Wildcard Casinos in Blackhawk have another incredible promotion. They'll be giving away a Ford Bronco Raptor or nearly $30,000 in cash the weekend of May 23rd. Get finalist entries from 10 a.m. until midnight during their daily cash drawings every 45 minutes or by redeeming player points. And all daily cash drawings that don't get picked are eligible for a second chance drawing on Wednesdays, and that can turn into extra cash. Sasquatch and Wildcard Casinos, a family-owned casino that treats you like family.
All right, welcome back. Hot Takes, Goodman and Haertl. And when I almost spit my coffee on the screen, obviously that was your cue, Bruce, to go old man and stumble away from the screen. And you had
to get coffee.
Let me come back. I don't think I've ever seen that on a podcast in my life. We had a 2-minute commercial break, not a lot of time. Okay, so you decide to get up and get a cup of coffee. Clearly, you making coffee or grabbing the coffee takes more than 2 minutes, because as we came back from commercial, your seat was empty and you look like an old man waddling back to your seat, going around it and sitting down. That is a first.
All of my secrets are unveiled. That is really embarrassing.
Wow. Well, at least I didn't go out for a cigarette. See, I can handle not having a cigarette for 2 minutes.
How do you do that for the 45 minutes that we're together? How does that work for you?
I am so enamored with the conversation and your ravishingly good looks. I just cannot tear myself away.
Well done. Well said. All right.
Okay, with that, let's get into Bo Nix. Obviously had a great rookie season. CJ Stroud nearly had an historic rookie season. And you can make the case Jaden Daniels might have even been better than CJ Stroud. We're not going to get into Jaden Daniels as he goes into his sophomore season, but we will talk about Bo Nix. What makes you believe with Bo Nix he will not have a Stroud slide?
Yeah. Sophomore slumps happen in the NFL for one reason and one reason alone. Schedules get announced early, not the days that you're playing, but the opponents that you're playing. And what do NFL coaches do all season long? They're not out recruiting. They're not out raising money. They're just working on football. And they're working on dissecting a player that heretofore they didn't have any tape on, right? Because he's a rookie. Now you've got 16, 17, 18 games for the in Bo Nix's case of tape to dissect for a game and a team that you will be facing that season. So what they learn is levels of discomfort that you can put a quarterback in to make him make mistakes. So you're constantly trying to repeat things that he doesn't do well or hasn't done well in the previous season. So it becomes incumbent upon Sean Payton, who is he really the quarterback whisperer? I think we're about ready to find out, Eric. Now, I would be bullish on Bo Nix because of his maturity, because of his football IQ. But hey, the sophomore slump happens. There's a reason it's called the sophomore slump, and it's happened to players that you could argue are as good or better than Bo Nix.
I would absolutely agree with you that, like in baseball, there is a book on a pitcher. So maybe by 10, 12 starts, an opposing team tends to figure out what a guy can do. And I agree with you. Teams are going to be studying Bo Nix. However, I'm going to give you just a wee bit of pushback on CJ Stroud. Nico Collins missed 5 games.
Yep.
Tank Dell missed 3 games. Stephon Diggs, he didn't even play half the season. The Houston Texans were a pretty banged up team. Fair to say, specifically offensively.
Fair enough. Yeah. But here's my
deal. So with
deal.
that, CJ Stroud really didn't have he didn't have all of his weapons at his disposal. But here, now that I'm thinking about this, as I'm saying this out loud, other teams, when they look at Bo Nix, they're not going to look at Bo Nix this year and say, well, Nico Collins was injured for 5 games.
Right.
They didn't have a great wealth of offensive talent. They didn't have a great wealth of health at the running back position, for Bo and tight end position. If anything, Bo Nix, we saw what he could do with the talent he had around him at the skill position player.
Right.
Position players, right?
Absolutely.
He's more than fine with, I don't want to be mean when I say this, so I'll say he's more than fine with average position players, for lack of a better
adequate, right? Okay, fair enough. Right.
Courtland Sutton was certainly better than adequate. With that, what's it going to look like next year? Yes, there will be a book on Bo Nix, but I think Bo Nix has such a processor, not like a Nikola Jokic, but he can figure out things pretty quickly on the fly.
And I think that you're on to it. I think the difference with Bo Nix will be all of a sudden he has weapons around him. So the look of Bo Nix from a year ago, while you might be able to see some tendencies in terms of time in the pocket, movement right or left, things that he does under duress, you have no video of him with better than average talent. And that is a key point. And that, to me, is the departure for Sean Payton and Bo Nix and the Broncos. You can prepare for Bo Nix from a year ago, but all of a sudden, Bo Nix, we think, we feel like it's coming already, is going to have better weapons around him. So how much better of a quarterback is he going to be with better weapons around him? It would stand to reason, connecting the dots, that they're going to be a better offense, but a different looking offense, even in the same structure of offense, than they looked like last year, just with different personnel. That's intriguing, and it's also hopeful.
I think Sean Payton hinted at this during the combine, maybe earlier than this. He talked a lot about the Joker role and so on and so forth.
Right.
To me, kind of hinted that they are not, breaking down doors to get a wide receiver with the top pick. They seem pretty happy with what they have. Sometimes teams fall in love with their young players. We've seen the Nuggets do that more than a few times, and that was years ago with, Tim Conley, when he fell in love with Gary Harris, right?
Yeah.
Would not get rid of that guy under any circumstances. The Rockies fall in love with their young players. Are they falling in love with if they don't take a wide receiver who's a legitimate number 2 behind Cortland Sutton, or you can make the case that Cortland Sutton's a legitimate number 2 and they don't have a number 1. But when you look at Franklin, you look at Vele, and then whatever else you have, notice I haven't mentioned Mims yet. And I'm not mentioning Mims for a reason. He came on late. And I think he came on late because as Bo was digesting the playbook, there were a lot more things that Sean Payton had in mind for Marvin Mims once Bo understood all of the potential options he could have. I would expect Mims's role to grow this year, which in theory is a joker role.
Yeah.
It's more than just a joker role. It is quintessential joker role. I mean, outside of Deebo Samuel, maybe a couple of other guys, over the course of a stretch of however many games, how many times did Marvin Mims run the ball?
No, you're right.
Right?
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Marvin Mims is a very intriguing talent. And I think that we've just started to see the tip of the iceberg with him. And now with an entire season of trust, because 2 years ago, we talked a lot about Marvin Mims, but Marvin Mims obviously had not gotten to a place of trust or of an understanding of how to use the player from Sean Payton. One or the other, or a combination thereof. They clearly are on the same page now. Marvin Mims likes the way that he's being used. It intrigued him. I think it invigorated him, and he was a difference maker at the end of the season, the last part of the season. And I think that that's just one of the pieces moving forward that can really make this offense that was pretty damn good last year, Eric. I mean, really, this was not the Nathaniel Hackett, Vic Fangio offenses of the past. This offense scored points and put themselves in a position to win games. And if you believe that they can still eke out another 2 or 3 points with better people in the offense, the Broncos are going to be a tough out.
Metaphorically speaking, when you look at Sean Payton's 2 years here, he had Russell Wilson and, Bo Nix. With that, Russell Wilson had a difficult time digesting the playbook. And by the way, every time I see Russell Wilson on TV now, whether it's at Madison Square Garden throwing a football in the stands, I seriously want to throw up on my shirt. Yeah. Where have I seen this movie before?
Well, good call.
Mr. Happy, and he's going to walk in there and he's going to turn things around. You know what? Good for Sean. He got it right with Russell Wilson. He got it right. Russell Wilson is now on his 3rd team in a year.
Mm-hmm.
3rd team in a year. With that, there are 2 types of playbooks for, metaphorically speaking, for Sean Payton. You have your calculus playbook, and your AP calculus playbook. Russell Wilson should go nowhere near an AP class when it comes to a playbook. Bo Nix has the acumen to be in an AP calculus class. And you know what's on every single page of that AP calculus book? Marvin Mims.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah.
Do this. That's the graduate level class. And maybe that's one reason why Marvin Mims wasn't as involved as he was this year compared to the previous year with Russell Wilson. He's the advanced class who can do a lot of different things. Or maybe I'm giving Sean Payton and Marvin Mims way too much credit. Maybe Marvin just wasn't ready for this type of role. I don't know. But it seemed that the offense looked a lot different. Mm-hmm. And the play calling looked a lot more creative when Marvin Mims actually touched the ball. Because you're like, wow, look at that play. Wow, look at that play. Yeah, we saw that stuff in practice. Well, we sure as heck didn't see it in games.
Yeah, we need to remember that he was only in his 2nd season as a professional. And, I think that you're talking about a player still trying to have an understanding of the role that he is being asked to play. It was different, certainly, than anything he did at the University of Oklahoma. But I think that, and we talked to him regularly last year, you could see him coming out of that shell. If there was uncertainty for him at some point, that all dissipated because he became very comfortable with the role, said many times, loves the way that he's being used. And to your point, and I agree with you, the evolution of that role, I think, will continue in earnest this season. The thing that makes it really exciting is, okay, now you've got a good mid-range pass-catching tight end in Evan Ingram. Do you draft a deeper threat down the middle from the tight end position that can stretch the field? Do you go draft, as you pointed out, a number 2 type wide receiver that can stretch the field? Troy Franklin, what does he look like in year 2? Tantalizingly good at times in year 1 with his speed. Can he now catch balls being 2 or 3 feet behind receivers? And then we haven't even talked about the running back position. What kind of threat do you have at running back now for wheel routes, flat throws, things of that nature? So if you can get those pieces in and then fit them with a Cortland Sutton, a Troy Franklin, a Devon Vele, guys that all played well in their roles in their first year, it's exciting stuff, man. It's really exciting stuff. And I am very interested to see how it all plays out. But I'm with you, and I think your observation is good. It's the talent around him that's going to make Bo Nix different in year 2. He was great to a large degree because of the system, the guy coaching him, and his own ability in year 1. Now, all of a sudden, add pieces to it, and if you connect the dots, progress.
We have about 30 seconds to go. I'm just going to come out and be completely honest with you that I'm going to ask you just to ask you. I really don't give a shit about your office pool. How are you doing going into the weekend? This is the only opportunity you're going to get to talk about it. You could bring it up on your own, but I can promise you this will be the only time I ask.
It's not really an office pool. The only ones that we play now are family pools. So, and I think there's like 18 people in it. My wife.
How many are sportscasters? How many of them are sportscasters?
None. I would be the only one.
Win every year.
Oh, no, stop it. I don't pay attention to college basketball anymore. I mean, I really don't. I pay,
that's a
I pay
great way
very
of
little
saying
attention.
That's why I keep losing. Good. When do the flag?
Only one can win, Eric. Only one. I will be totally truthful. My wife, who kicks my ass at virtually anything anyway, is 10 points ahead of me in this pool. And she constantly reminds me. In fact, I asked her last week, where are we in the pool? And she said, well, I'm leading it. And I said, well, where am I? And she said, well, you're in a tie for second, but in 8th. So she relegated me to 8th, even though I was in a tie for second.
Right.
And she, the rest of the weekend, reminded me that I was in 8th place, even though I was only 10 points behind her. But here we are a week later, and she is still beating me by 10 points. So yeah, there's a little skin in the game.
It sounds like you are in a sports abusive relationship.
Well, what can I say?
And you're the sportscaster, so shame on you. With that, Bruce, have a great weekend. Alex, have a great weekend. It was a great first week of the show. Looking forward to week 2 starting on Monday. Hot takes with Goodman and Haertl. Make it the best possible weekend you can.